Good morning. It's good to have the number of people that we have here. Brother Kenny, you sneaked in on me. I didn't see you come in. Glad that you made it out with us. It's not always what we do that's important, but why we do it. If a person is coming to worship service for the purpose to satisfy someone else, it's the wrong reason. If a person is doing the work of the Lord because they want to be popular or famous or want to gain something from it other than salvation, it's the wrong reason. The right reason is why we come together. And there's such various reasons other people do this, and it's just so not really understandable why people could put something else before God. People's lives are lived for various reasons. I know that sounds kind of unusual, but why do we live? For really, each of us live for some reason. There's a purpose in our life. It has been said that some people live to eat when they should be eating to live. If we eat to live, that means we eat what we need. If we live to eat, that means we live from one day to the next, just waiting for that next meal. And there's some people like that. And that's a sad situation. None of us live just to be living. I know some people may say they experience life and all that, that's all they want to do. Just live to be living. We don't all die, we don't live to die, we don't do the things that some people think sometimes, but our lives are for a purpose. It's not just as we do whatever we want. As we consider our lives and what's the end of our lives, what's our desires in life, what do we hope to accomplish in this life? In other words, what do we live for? Have you ever really thought about that? Look at what the Apostle Paul said. He said, "For me to live is Christ, and to die is gain." Philippians chapter 1, verse 21. So Paul specifies straight out that for him to live is Christ. That's what his goal in life is, to do everything he can for Christ. But for him, it would be better if he died and went on to heaven. That's what he's saying here. To die is gain for him. But as he continues to live, his life is in Christ, and everything he strived for was to accomplish the goals that Christ set him forth to do. I want us to think about Paul this morning and what he says here, for me to live is Christ, as we consider the purposes of our life. First of all, some people live for pleasure. Now think about this. For me to live is pleasure. Pleasure was the God of the prodigal son. Look at what it says. And Luke chapter 15, verse 13, he had gained all his portion from his father, or his portion of the inheritance, which should have been enough to sustain him for a great number of years until he could get his own business started, or his own farm started. He says that not many days after the younger son gathered all together, he went and told his father, "I want what's mine." And his father did that reluctantly, of course, but he did because he knew what was ahead for the child and that he was not mature enough to handle that situation yet. And not many days after, the younger son gathered all together and took his journey into a far country, and there wasted his substance with riotous living. Riotous living is living for pleasure. It's not living for a goal. You've not got a goal set out there that you're going to try to accomplish. You just live every day for that day, doing what you want to do and spending what you have on what you want to. But we know that after many days, this young man spent it all and had nothing left. He lived a life of pleasure for a short time. Had all kinds of friends. When you've got money, you're throwing it around. You've got friends following you everywhere you go. So you're popular too. You're just not living for pleasure. At this point in his life, he lived for nothing but to do what he wanted to do. He wasted his total inheritance. Now, let's not deny, let's not think that pleasure is not offered in this world. centered around you having pleasure. They don't talk about the best vehicle to get you from here to there and to last longer. They talk about the one that's the best looking car. Or the one that will satisfy everybody else and make people think highly of you. Look at your billboards. 90% of them are talking about pleasures you can get of this world. Advertisements, movies, TV, all entertainment. It's all pushing you toward fulfilling your desire for pleasure. Talk about a person doing that. What did I do? Just a second. Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verse 9. Listen to what the young people. He said, rejoice, O young, in thy youth. Listen to what he tells them to do. And let thy heart cheer thee in the days of thy youth. In other words, do whatever you feel like doing in your heart. And walk in the ways of thy heart. Do what you want to do. Seek pleasure. And in the sight of thy eyes. But know thou that for all these things God will bring thee into judgment. How could Samuel say that? Because he did that. He indulged in every pleasure he could possibly come up with. And that's when he made the statement, vanity, oh vanity. Everything is vanity. There's a big but there. You can enjoy all these things, but that for all these things, God will bring thee into judgment. Pleasure of what we're talking about, living your life for pleasure, is always temporary. Because it don't last forever. Things end. I want you to think of the life of Moses. When Moses was born, he was born a Hebrew. 3 months later, he was living the life of pleasure. He was in the palace of Egypt, second in line to the Pharaoh, had everything he wanted at all times. But he threw it away. He gave it away. He got rid of it. Listen, Hebrews 11, 24 through 25. By faith. Where did that faith come from? Come from the Word of God. Someone had taught him, his mother, possibly his sister, possibly others. By faith, Moses, when he had come of years, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God rather than enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season. Now think about it. By faith, he chose God, which is eternity. He left the pleasures of Egypt, which were for a season. That means a short period of time. A season for us is like 4 months. Or 3 months, I'm sorry. It's like 3 months long a season is. So this is for a short period of time as compared to a lifetime. Don't get me wrong. In no way am I saying that we shouldn't have a pleasurable life. We can have a pleasurable life. God gave us these things upon this earth to enjoy and use for our life to make it a better life. But when our life is centered around pleasure and nothing else, it's a decision that is fatal. A decision that will destroy us from life with heaven with God. So some people build their whole life around pleasure. Well, there's others that build their whole life around popularity. I want to be seen. I want to be the famous one. Mark 15 and 15. Pilate built his around popularity. His life was built around popularity. In other words, he wanted to please the right people in order to get done what he wanted to get done. Listen to what it said. Mark 15 and 15. And so Pilate, willing to content the people, that means make them happy. Willing to make the people happy, released Barnabas unto them and delivered Jesus when he was scourged and when he had scourged him to be crucified. So he done the popular thing. He done what would make the most people happy. He done what was popular in the world. Let's not deny it. Everybody wants to be known by somebody. Most people strive their whole life for popularity. I mean, that's all that it is. Look at how much money We pay movie stars. And the more popular they are, the more money they make. It's not like, sports. Sports, you have to be good to make more money. But movies is just if you're popular. If everybody likes to watch you in a movie, then you'll make more money. I want us to think about Jesus again. Mark 15:15. The popular thing was at that time was to do what the people wanted. Matthew chapter 27, verse 17 to 18, talking about the same situation that Mark was. It says, therefore, when they gathered together, Pilate said unto them, whom ye that I release unto you? And they said, Barabbas, or Jesus, which is called Christ. For he knew that for envy they had delivered him. And what did they yell? We want Barabbas. And he said, what then shall I do with this Jesus who is called Christ? Jesus had lost his popularity. Now Jesus was popular, let's not get it wrong. Let's look at how Jesus progressed in his popularity. Look in John chapter 6 and verse 2, it's after he had fed the 5,000, it says, and a great multitude followed him, because they saw his miracles which he had done, which he did on them that were diseased. I mean, they went and seen all these miracles that he did, and they followed him, a great multitude. Not a few people, a great multitude. But that didn't last long. His popularity was soaring. That multitude was there. We're still in the book of John chapter 6. As he discussed with them the bread of life, as he discussed with them the fact that they needed to come to hear the word of God and not the physical food or the disease healing that they were after. After he rebuked them on that, in verse 66, it says, from that time many of his disciples went back and walked no more with him. That's not the multitude. His disciples, not the 12 apostles now, but many of the disciples who had been following him for a long time turned their back and walked away. Just because he rebuked them for not understanding what they needed more than anything was the Word of God. Think how quickly that happened. This happened through all one discourse and one of his sermons that he was preaching. By the end of it, they were leaving him. So many left him that he looked at his apostles and said, will you leave me too? That's when Peter made the famous statement, where could we go? Only you have the Word of God. But you know it didn't stop there. His popularity continued down. In Matthew chapter 27 and verse 22, Pilate said unto them, what shall I do then with Jesus, which is called Christ? And they all said, let him be crucified. They went from a multitude following him everywhere he went to see what they could get. They went to the fact that they left him because he didn't give them everything they wanted, to the fact that they said crucify him. They hated him. That's how popularity goes. Oh, you're popular as long as you make everybody happy. As long as everybody's fine with what you're doing, they're happy and getting what they want out of it, then you're popular. But when you start denying people or teaching them something they don't want to hear, your popularity goes down. Again, I'm not saying you shouldn't be popular. There's nothing wrong with being popular. But what's wrong with it is when we decide that that's the reason we do things. There's certain places, and up Lenore was one of them, where there was one church, and I can't remember the name of it, but it was the popular church to go to. And that's the same as it is everywhere else. There's certain places where this is the church you go to because you'll be popular there. It's the one to fit in with. We don't do things because of popularity. It's okay to be popular, but it's not okay to do things just to be popular. It's a mistake. Another thing is possessions. Some people live their life for possessions. It's my stuff and I want it and I want it now. And I'm not going to share it with nobody. You know, there's people like that no matter what they've got, they won't share it with nobody. They don't even want to share it with their children or their family. Many people, for them, their possessions are their God. And they act that way. Look at Luke chapter 12, verse 19. it says, and he spoke a parable. That's the wrong one. Luke 12:19. And I will say to my soul, soul, this guy had a great crop come in. Abundantly, much more than he could handle. This guy had enough barns to put food in to satisfy himself for years already. But he had a crop that came in that was great. And I will say to my soul, thou hast much goods laid up for many years. Take thy ease, eat, drink, and be merry. He had so much food that he had to build new barns to put it in. But look what he done. He hoarded that food. He hoarded that stuff. He didn't worry about 2 commandments of God. There's 2 commandments of God here that he's violated. The 2 greatest commandments. Thou shalt love thy God with all thy heart. He left God out. God's not there. And he left his neighbor out. That's what he lived for. To build up greater possessions, to add to what he already had. Well, is it okay to have possessions? Of course it is. Everybody in here owns a car or rides in a car. You have a home. We have those things. But are those possessions your life? Do they control what you do through your life? Obviously, this controlled him. What he had controlled him. Just before this, in Luke chapter 12, verse 16 and 17, Jesus speaking, and he spake a parable unto them, saying, the ground of a rich man brought forth plenty, and he thought within himself. That's where I said he left God out. He thought within himself, not toward anyone else, left his neighbors, left everything else, saying, what shall I do? Because I have no room to bestow my fruits. He didn't want it to go to waste. But he didn't want to give it to nobody either. For him to give it to somebody, for him would have been to waste it. Nevertheless, with everything else, possessions are temporary. What have you got that you can take to the grave with you? Except your soul. Is it okay to have possessions? Why, absolutely. It's fine to have possessions. Let's go over and consider what Jesus said. Luke chapter 12, verse 15 again. And he said unto them, take heed. This is before he told the parable. And he said unto them, take heed and beware of covetous. For a man's life consists not of the abundance of the things which he possesses. Now that's what Jesus said. And look at Luke chapter 12 and verse 20 on down. It says, but God said unto him, thou fool, this night thy soul shall be required of thee. Then whose all these things be, which thou hast provided. Think about what happened here. He was warned. Jesus said in Luke chapter 12, verse 15, he said, your life is not to do with your possessions. And in verse 20, he says, tonight you shall perish, and your possessions have done you no good. We lose our possessions. Sometimes they wear out, and sometimes we don't have the financial power to retrieve them. Possessions aren't stolen from you, they can be. Look at what Jesus said in Matthew chapter 6, beginning in verse 19. He says, lay not up for yourself treasures upon earth, where moth and rust is corrupt, and where thieves do break through and steal. But lay up for yourself treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust does corrupt, and where thieves do not break it through and steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. It's here today, gone tomorrow. You've heard that statement before. Oh, I've got this here. How many people have you seen that was so well? There's been people who become billionaires and lose it all. There's people who play the lottery. Of course they should, but they do. They play the lottery and they win millions of dollars. There was a man over in West Virginia. He lost it every bit. It was enough to do him a lifetime. And he squandered it away just in a very short time. Here today, gone tomorrow. Same as everything else, it's clear that we're not saying that. I'm not saying it's wrong to have possessions, but if possessions rule our lives, that's when the problem comes in. when they take over and control what we do and why we do things. We do things just to gain those possessions, just to gain popularity, then it's wrong. Some people live for power. I got trouble with this guy's name, but I'll do the best I can. I want you to listen to what Paul says about this person. And this happened. There's problems in churches because people want the power or the authority. They want that for themselves. They don't want to work through the elders, or they don't want to work through the congregation. They want to control things. We should never want to be the person that controls everybody else. This congregation here works together. We have congregational meetings to make decisions about what we're going to do, and that's what we should be doing. But look at what Paul wrote here concerning Diotheus. He said, I wrote unto the church, but Diotheus, who loved to have preeminence among them. Preeminence means he wanted to be above everybody. He wanted to boss everybody. Preeminence, he said, and received us not. He wanted preeminence so much he was afraid of Paul, and he wouldn't even receive Paul in. He said, wherefore, if I come, I will remember him his deeds which he does, prating against us with malice and words. That means planning against us, working up a way to stop us from what we're doing, against with malice words, and not content with our with. Neither does he himself receive the brethren. He wanted so much power, he wouldn't receive anybody else in, afraid they would take his power away from him. He controlled people, and that's what he wanted to do. He wanted the power to do that. And look what it says, and forbid them that they would, and cast them out of the church. One man with that authority, with that power, he's abusing that. He's wanting power over people to control. And that's not what the church is all about. That's not what life is all about. Again, the world offers you power. If a person wants to rise in our country, they can rise, and we know people that at a point in time in their life they were on welfare and they become president of the United States. Now that's a rise in power. That was Bill Clinton. At one time his mother lived on welfare because she didn't have a job and her husband had left. So then Bill Clinton rose from that point in life. If a person wants power, they can gain power. It's out there. If that's the main point in your life, it's available for those who seek Him. Let's look at Nebuchadnezzar. That's one we can relate with. Nebuchadnezzar. Daniel chapter 4 and verse 30, it says, the king spake, and he said, is this not this great Babylon that I have built for the house of the kingdom by the might of my power for the honor of my majesty? Think of what he thought about himself. He put himself on a pedestal up here above everybody else. He had power over the kingdom. He denied anybody anything. And he'd been warned. He'd been warned, God will take this away from you. But he didn't listen. He wanted that power, and he strived for that power. But let's look at this. Power is temporary, isn't it? Your soul's permanent, but power is temporary. Let's look at what happened. On down to verse 31. It says, while the words was in the king's mouth, the words we just read, there fell a voice from heaven saying, O King Nebuchadnezzar, to thee it is spoken, the kingdom is departed from thee, and they shall drive thee from men, and thy dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field. Thou shalt make thee to eat grass as oxen, and 7 times shalt pass over thee. That means 7 years. Until thou knowest the Most High ruler in the kingdom of men, and giveth it wherever he will. The same hour was the things fulfilled upon Nebuchadnezzar, and he was driven from men, and he did eat grass as oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, till his hair were grown like eagle's feathers, and his nails like bird claws. In other words, his fingernails grew out, his hair grew long down 7 years of growth with no grooming, no taking care of, eating just ever what's on the ground to eat. Where's his power at now? God has power over all things. God controls all things. And King Nebuchadnezzar was brought to his knees. He glorified God after that. Again, it's okay to have power. It's okay to have power of the right kind, as long as we exert that power in the way that we should, and not use it in a wrong way. To live for power is a waste of life, because that power is only temporary and it will be gone. But some people live for that and they thrive for that. We could go on and on. There's all kinds of things that men thrive for and try to do that they shouldn't do. Our lives should be lived in a certain way, as Paul said to begin with here, that my life is in Christ. As children of God, we should do everything we can to serve God, knowing that all this other stuff is temporary. Popularity is temporary, possessions are, power, all of it's temporary. Look at what Paul wrote. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. We can't strive in this world to be popular and still serve God. Do you realize we can be so popular at this congregation, we just want to turn a few things around and ignore God's word and teach what other people want and have social parties and all this kind of stuff? This congregation could thrive with a great size, much more people than we have. But popularity is not the answer. Possessions, we could build a big kitchen over here on the side of here and feed everybody that wanted to come up and down the road, and that would be a possession we would have, and that's not what God sent us for. And the power and authority is all His. Each of us must be truthful when we say, for my life is in Christ. Are we doing that? Are we dedicating ourselves to God and God only? Galatians chapter 2 and verse 20. Again, Paul writes,